Hi, I'm Ben Story here today for Gestalt IT. I am a network security engineer working for a small VAR. I also blog at packitforwarding.com. Today I am here with Nirav Shah, who is Vice President of Products at Fortinet.
Hey everyone, I'm Nirav Shah. I'm a Vice President for Products and Solution at Fortinet, focusing on Zero Trust, SASE, and SD-WAN technologies. Yeah, nice to meet you, Ben.
The last few years have been full of buzz around working from home, hybrid work, and other new realities. The perimeter is no longer sufficient to secure businesses. How to secure everyone, no matter where they are working, has become a major problem for corporations around the world. Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE, is the solution to many aspects of securing the work from anywhere workforce. Let's explore a bit about how SASE does that and how it coexists with existing traditional perimeter defenses to provide a complete solution.
If you think about traditional VPN, right, what generally you're doing is from the remote worker user is connecting to wherever that device is, whether it's in a corporate office or data center, and then from there you backhaul traffic to internet. So there are two biggest problem happens. One, by doing that, the user experience really goes down and you really many customers complain about that user experience. But second, that VPN that has been connected, oftentimes once the user is connected to the VPN or to your office, you are providing them an implicit access. So that has also been a big security issue. And what SASE does is it's completely changed that. It tries to solve those two things by allowing you to directly go out to internet, and inline the cloud delivered security inspection is provided, and also making sure getting an explicit access.
So, we've all been dealing with all sorts of changes in the last few years. The pandemic brought a lot of people working from home. The perimeter is finally dead. We've been saying it for years, but COVID pretty much killed it. So now we have to protect our employees out in the field, wherever that may be. It could be their home, could be behind a piece of antiquated technology at home with no security. But we still have to allow them to securely connect and do their work, and that's where SASE comes in.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point about remote user and distributed users. And SASE as a term stands for Secure Access Services Edge, is really trying to simplify security and connectivity for the distributed remote users, right? So the idea is really how do we provide the convergence of networking and security, but this convergence is cloud delivered. So wherever users are or wherever some of the thin edges are, how simple way to connect and get security inspection before you access any of the applications. That's the main core idea of SASE.
So we've got that age-old problem. I think people don't realize. They always say, "Well, my network is slow or my network connection is slow. I don't have enough bandwidth." But SASE really doesn't solve the bandwidth; it solves the latency, getting you to that service, whatever it may be, quickly. And so we're definitely seeing those gains, and we see that all the time in our industry. We retool, we find a new way to do things, and it gets better with each iteration. And as usual, with iterations come new acronyms, and so we keep hearing SASE. That's been the acronym for the last few years. Now we're starting to see SASE and SSE. What's the difference? What are the two mean? Are they the same? Are they different? How do they interact?
Let me make it really simple for you. SSE is one of the big component of SASE. So SASE require two big component, right? I talk about networking and I talk about security. The networking component is that SD-WAN, the connectivity piece. And the security component is that SSE. Oftentimes, the security is cloud delivered. And that is why that security services edge is cloud delivered. Vendor manages those point of presence and scalable network. And as a user, you really just connect to that network, as you rightly mentioned. That's where the latency and those things come in handy, because faster you're connecting to those data centers and POP, doing the security inspection, and then from there you're going out to access application. So as you can see, SSE is one of the core component provides the cloud delivered security.
That makes things clearer. It's always fun when they keep adding acronyms to the same thing. I'm sure that there'll be another one coming around soon. Um, so what are some of the problems that our industry is facing other than latency and doing the cloud on ramp type stuff? What are the other problems that we're solving with SASE products?
Yeah, look, fundamentally, it solves three problems, and that's what most of my conversations with the customers come up. The number one thing is, and especially post pandemic, this is important that customers are now looking at their architecture and they're realizing that they have many point products between the networking and security. So, what SaaS is doing as a framework, it is bringing this networking and security capabilities together using the convergence approach. So now what that means is when you're remote or when you have a small branch or a thin edge, when you connect to the SASE framework, you are getting full security capabilities that you can use to scan the user traffic. So it's very simple to use. You are consolidating, and again, it gives you a lower cost to operate as well. So that is one, right? The number two is the zero trust. And I think we talked about the VPN and how VPN provides that implicit access. The zero trust mindset is very critical. And one of the first things that customers want to do is always verify the users, right? And never trust anyone. And once you do that verification, now you provide an explicit access. So that is again, SASE is fundamentally solving it. And third is the user experience, right? Latency or how fast you connect to the application. It doesn't matter where are your workloads. Your ability to get a faster connection and you have a seamless experience is what matter. So those are the three things I see SASE is providing the customer benefits.
So you're talking about having a framework, and you're talking about all these different subcomponents of the framework. That just sounds to me like we're going to have a whole bunch of little things that we're managing. You have to have the VPN component, the security component, SD-WAN. How do we get away from complexity and still provide that framework?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of SASE, right? At Fortinet, what we have done is we always believed in the convergence of bringing this networking and security together. And we have a software called FortiOS. While we did that for 20 years, now we made that available. In fact, it is now 3 years that we made that FortiOS available as part of our cloud delivered SASE architecture. So what that means is, as a customer, let's say when I'm traveling, using that simple agent, when I connect to the nearest SASE point of presence, I'm getting all the capabilities, right? And we are talking about IPS, secure web gateway, ZTNA, CASB, sandbox, all of the security capabilities, which oftentimes customer had a point product, are now available in a single scanning. And that's where it makes it so easy for customers to provide that security for prevention and detection.
Sounds good. So one client to rule them all, sort of like the Lord of the Rings, only Lord of the Sassy. Got it. Um, it's an interesting thing to talk about because in the past we've always had all the point products, and so being able to bring it all into one does make sense. Um, what we're talking about this like this is the um, cure all for everything. What are some of the use cases that you've seen with customers where SASE just isn't a good fit, or it just doesn't solve their problems, or it's a fit for some things but not others?
Yeah, look, the SASE use cases, and we'll go into more detail, but there are areas where customers may not go to SASE, to your point, right? And those areas are more like, let's say, you have an operational technology environment, right? OT environment of manufacturing where the segmentation is key. You want to do internal segmentation inside the factory to prevent the lateral movement of threats. It's extremely important for you to deploy security on-prem, right? Similarly, there are places where customers deploy SD-WAN, but they still prefer security on-prem to have a flexibility. In that case, in fact, Fortinet has thousands of such customers who have done that. So it's going to remain hybrid band where customers, depending on the vertical, depending on the size, they will decide whether they want to use a SASE model or they want to have an on-prem security, which is again a solid use case for many, many customers.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is that we don't just have to throw out the old way of doing things. We can add SASE to that mix and use it for whatever purposes are best on either of the sides.
That's actually, Ben, that is really important what you said, because think about, right? Think about thousands of customers who have deployed the next generation firewall, SD-WAN at the branch, the data center, multi-cloud. SASE doesn't mean that they just remove and re-architect everything. At Fortinet, we always talk to our customers and say it's a journey. If you have deployed next generation firewall and SD-WAN, that's a great first step. Keep your on-prem network as is. But when your users are going remote, let me show you how it connects to the SASE. And then again, we have done some innovation where the SASE network and an on-prem network come together. And that is the power of building this framework with an on-prem and remote users rather than acting as a silo network.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And we've talked about where it's not a good fit. What are some of the best use cases that you've seen for SASE? Maybe even in addition to the traditional. Everybody thinks of the home worker, but what are some of the other things you've seen in the field?
Yeah, look, at the business level, there are customers who might be looking to move from capex to opex model, right? They don't want to buy a firewall on a bandwidth based, but they're looking for a per user based security. I think SASE is a great first step towards it. And inside that, for remote users, and oftentimes I call it thin edge, which is a small branch, there are three distinct use cases that customers would like to use with SASE. Number one, it's really about secure internet access, right? So, yep, you're remote. You want to go and access some of the internet websites. But before you do that, you will be gone through the POP where we provide the security inspection, right? Seamless access. The second is, and which is very important, well, I am remote now because sometime it's a hybrid workforce, right? Sometime in office, sometime I go back and work at home, but I want to access applications in the data center, which are the private application. So SASE enables the secure private access using the POP, using the ZTNA and SD-WAN functionality. And then lastly is a secure SaaS access, which is more about CASB, right? Where I want to access some of the SaaS application like Teams and Office 365 and Slack, but I want the visibility and control. So the SaaS access is key, but again, it can facilitate. Those are the key use cases we have seen, Ben.
So you mentioned the small branches, and that's one of the use cases that we're starting to see in our business is that we're seeing companies that have decided that we're going to open up smaller branch offices, maybe as a hoteling station for our workforce to come in, collaborate, work for a day or two, go, whatever their schedule may be, but they're not wanting to put the money into putting a firewall at that location, putting all this other infrastructure in. They just want to almost make it like it's a guest network, but still have secure access to everything. And that's a great play for SASE because they can come in and do that. And it's just like they're working at home, but they're in a corporate environment, and it saves money, but also still allows the security. So it's interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it depends. So what we have seen, it sometimes, as you describe, there are some sites where it's really about customers, their smartphone and the devices, and running this agent, right? This unified agent which allows you to connect to the SASE and give you all kind of functionality. It works great. But then you will find there are some other use cases where the small branches and retail where customers have already deployed the secure SD-WAN, right? They're very happy with security and SD-WAN on-prem. But it is more about when those users are going remote, how do I bring these networks together, right? And that's where again the SASE becomes handy, connecting this network and enabling access. So it depends on the profile and customer use case for sure.
So we've talked a bit about SASE in general. What kind of things are the Fortinet engineers doing to make Fortinet SASE something unique? What are your differentiators?
Whenever we talk about SASE, one of the most important foundation there is the security, right? The effectiveness of security is the most important part because yes, it is cloud delivered, but if the security is not good, not effective, you're not getting those access requirement. That's what you're looking to use SASE for. So, and Fortinet been in a security industry for last 20 plus years. We have the most investment from an AI and ML perspective for our FortiGuard lab. So what we did is using the FortiGuard labs, that security which we built, where we process over terabyte of data every day and then provide 200 billion of data back to our customers, that same security is now cloud delivered. So that is very important because anybody can offer SASE, but how good is their AI and ML engines, and how much data are you processing? How big is the threat intelligence? That's key. And second is, I talked about FortiOS. The software that we're running on our firewall, where we have 600,000 plus customers using that FortiOS, it is really important for us to make sure that that same FortiOS we are now running on SASE, right? And that's great because now again we are not acquiring companies and stitching them together. It's that mature convergence. But one thing we continue to do more is to make the cloud-based management and make it very simple to use.
Simple is always better, in my opinion. The more nerd knobs I have in front of me, that usually gets me into trouble. Um, so we've talked a lot about SASE and how things are going, but there's always more. Where can people learn more about Fortinet and Fortinet's SASE offerings, and maybe dig in a little deeper into the technical deep dives?
Absolutely. So you can go to fortinet.com/products/SASE, where you will see many of the things that we talked about, that single vendor SASE approach to that all the convergence approach and our unified age and information. So yeah, look forward to that.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you, Nirav, for your time and sharing all your insights with our audience today, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Ben.
You can hear this interview and more on Gestalt IT.